Hello and welcome to BWTV. Today I have a very special guest with me. Please help me welcome Mr. Sujit Patil, who is Chief Communication Officer of Godrej Industries Group. Welcome, Mr. Patil.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Resham.
In today's fast-paced corporate world, communication strategies play a very pivotal role in shaping a company's success, from balancing short-term pressures with long-term goals to leveraging PRs. Communication leaders must navigate challenges like cash conservation, online reputation management, and of course, the rise of AI. As companies face these hurdles, concepts like return on objectives, digital reputation strategies are becoming essential tools for driving growth. Particularly this dialogue, we will discuss how communication leaders are requested to navigate these challenges. How are things shaping up? What are we expecting in next 2 to 3 years? And what will be the long-term trend which is here to stay? Now, for the first question, Mr. Patel, tell me, in your observation, in the last 2 to 3 years, what has changed and what has not? You have been in the industry, you have been seeing the waves of ups and downs. Tell me what has changed and what is not.
The pace of change has been fiery in the last 5, 6 years, much more faster than previous few decades. A lot of evolutions have happened in technology, in the way people see communications, in the way the impact of communications is felt, the importance of communication. Post-COVID, I guess the centrality of communications, PR, reputation management has gone up significantly. What has not changed probably is the nuances of communication, the whole DNA of communication, which is storytelling, authenticity, which is always required. Only that's more emphasis on that now. The modes of communications in terms of traditional PR, digital platforms in the recent past, they've not changed. I mean, they're similar. Only the way you communicate through them, the nature of communications, the topics, the size of communication. When I say size, well, I mean, the attention spans have gone down for people to consume data. So the rise of snackable content, rise of authentic content, because people read out, people call out something which is, which brands are trying to greenwash or probably make tall claims. So authenticity has come to the fore. New technology in terms of measurement, in terms of data dissemination have become more democratized. Everyone has it. Crisis potentials have gone up because online has become more prevalent, and most importantly, more online crises are happening. So the importance of ORM has gone up. The online reputation management, the competency to actually respond quickly to any potential threat to a brand has become so important. I mean, that people have to be more prepared. Agility is in rather than planning. I think that's another trend which I'm seeing. Some more trends which I see is that the era of spray and pray, where people used to send out press releases and expect coverages to come out, that's gone. With the shrinking media space, I think it's more related to data which is relevant to people. People are seeking relevance, what's happening around them. So the hyper local communications have gone up, which has led to the rise of hyper-local influencers. So large, big influencers doesn't work. What probably works today is smaller key opinion leaders who've got less followers, but the high amount of credibility in what they say and what they do. So I think these are some changes which are happening, which are very good for the industry in terms of focus, pointedness, great brand building, authenticity. The new AI is authenticity and inclusion. I think inclusion has become so important. I mean, equality, DEI, these are the stories, of course, ESG. I mean, these are the two facets which have suddenly cropped up big time in the whole overall narrative. And these have become differentiators for brand to create a positive disposition towards them. In fact, if you see the recent study where youngsters, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, which is coming up in the job market now, they are looking at organizations who are good in these realms, which is DEI and ESG, and they would like to join those organizations rather than any other organization. In fact, investors are looking at these things. So I think there's a huge plethora of changes which have happened, which are good for the industry. and a massive opportunity for all the communications professionals to actually create content, data, and talk about these things. I think I can go on and on.
I
Better you
agree.
ask the
I
next
agree.
question.
One thing which is confirmed that one thing that is confirmed is times are interesting. We are seeing plethora of changes, as you said. Uh, I mean, would you agree that there is a short-term pressure uh, all, all across the verticals, be it business, be it marketing, be it communication? Is there a short-term pressure, and what strategies are needed to kind of meet them, uh, despite compromising on the long-term goals?
Short-term pressures are going to be there because our industry works that way in terms of a listed organization. It's the quarter-on-quarter improvement which the shareholders also seek, the investors look at. But I think having a long-term perspective and long-term strategy is absolutely important for any organization, and that's not only true for the businesses, but for our function or any of the corporate functions. So in the realms of PR and communications, of course, one needs to have a long-term strategy because change takes place only in a long-term horizon. So if you have a long-term strategy of where your brand needs to be, what is the reputation that we envisage, and then once it's broken down into smaller achievable targets which are month on month or week on week or whatever, as per whatever frequency, that's the best way to operate on a PR process. So say for example, if a PR plan or a strategy is there for 6 months, at end of 6 months this is the return on objective, and this is where you want to see the brand, and then you break it up. What are the short term gains and the short term achievements for the first month, for the second month, and the third month? This also helps you and gives you an opportunity to do any course corrections in case you're wavering from your target. So I think it's a good complex mix of short-term and long-term pressures. But my thinking is that, of course, long-term planning is absolutely important because that gives you a long-term perspective and also gives you time to achieve those, objectives which are which you've set out for.
Before we get into the details and the depth of online reputation management, given that it's your favorite topic, I want to bring your attention on AI coming in. Now, for PR, for communication leaders, it can be a boon or a pain. I'm not too sure, but for 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 all the leaders across the sectors, it is something that is taking shape. It's still in the nascent stage. It is still taking shape. What is your take? How will it impact in the long term? Also, how will it help PR and Corpcom leaders to integrate this in daily operations?
So AI is no longer the shiny little object which everyone is so gung about. It's shown its colors already. People are using it. People are benefiting from it. There are various ways to look at AI in terms of PR and communications. I think I'm pretty bullish that it's going to help professionals actually free out a lot of time and time from doing the mundane jobs of
Correct.
which are repetitive and which can be automated. I think, and use the time which is saved for more strategic thinking, more in-depth and long-term thinking kind of a
Correct.
thing. I think I've been using AI a lot in terms of the chat GPTs of the world to create probably a first draft of something, maybe
I'm
to
also connecting this with with what you mentioned in your initial comments, the authenticity. Now, when we seeing the rise of social media incoming, the rise of digital first things, a lot of brands are going digital first in terms of their marketing strategies, their communication strategies, for disseminating their stories, their ideas, their ethos. Now, is there a challenge of ethos and authenticity when we look at AI integration?
So it's see, there are ethical standards which need to be followed by every brand, be it a small brand or a legacy brand which is known for its authenticity and ethics and fairness and trust. That remains the basic contention. There have been debates around how ethical is it to use AI generated content. I'm not saying just copy paste AI content and then use it. I mean, you need to use your human intervention and brains also. I mean, as a first starting point to generate some data, it's a great opportunity. In terms of using AI to do some research for you, maybe using AI to track data, maybe using AI to respond. I mean, these are all ethical stuff. The content which goes in can always be course corrected and ensured that they are aligned. So how you use AI as a tool for yourself to free up your time is a great process. I mean, that doesn't mean that you're doing anything unethical or just copy pasting data. Of course, the copyright issues would emerge, and these are things where larger bodies are having a debate. And we'll have to wait until some definitive norms come in, some definitive policies come in terms of whether this data, which is generated through AI, is can be used by people or not used by people. I mean, it's a copyrights issue and stuff, but technology as such, which is available for you to help you do your job better. I mean, it's absolutely free for all to use it.
Perfect. Uh, Now, we just before opening our conversation, we discussed about Zepto's recent crisis they're facing. There's a notification alert that was unsolicited gone to a lady, and that created a ruckus for them. It's it.
Mm.
I mean, if I can use my words wisely, it seems like a PR nightmare for them right now. Now, with a whole lot of examples around us like these, what is your take on reputation management when we are looking at different stakeholders spread across? Now, with the help of social media, every stakeholder of the company is okay and good to write anything and everything about the brand, right? It's an open space, and it can be a threat, it can be a advantage for a brand, right? Now, tell me what, in your opinion, has been the case largely when we look at reputation management. And in the second part of my question, tell us what can save a brand from a crisis. What three must do's a brand shouldn't be compromising.
Well, it's a what should be done to save a brand from crisis is being thoughtful. I mean, if communication leads to any sort of crisis, then the communicators need to be thoughtful. They need to be aware of what they're communicating. They have multiple processes in terms of how you can ring fence or safeguard the communication that goes out. I'll come to that very soon. But the most important part of thing to understand is, when does a crisis happen? I mean, there's always, and this is my firm belief, in that whole process of a crisis becoming a large crisis and it starts impacting a brand. It starts from a small incident. An incident could be something which just occurred. It may be harmless at that point, but if it is not catered to, if it is not addressed, if it is not responded to, and the time between that incident and that eventuality of being a crisis is large, then the crisis becomes really big because you've not controlled the incident. What are the nuances of controlling an incident? Processes for responding immediately. Say somebody posts something about your brand which is adverse for you. You can always curtail it within the first 5-10 minutes by responding. Most of the complainants are looking for a shoulder. They're looking for a person to respond and solve the problem which they're facing. If brands are conscious enough to respond to them as soon as possible and not sit over it for days together and months together for it to become something which is very heated and more number of people giving traction to it, I think crisis would never happen because you responded, you've helped the customer in terms of alleviating his or her pain and given a solution. Unless you have a process that enables you to give a solution as soon as possible, you're bound to have crisis. So I think the first thing is being conscious, having a great team within and processes and responses ready so that the agility in responding to adverse situation is always present. I think that's the first and the basic rule of any crisis communication. If brands follow that, I don't think any brand can have crisis. Of course, there can be many more crises, but 80% of the crises online are based on lack of response. This is been my experience in the last 20-25 years. So if you really focus on that, I think half of the battle is won. Second thing is, as a preparedness for brands, it's on online reputation management because you don't have the luxury to respond on a large letter and all because content is small. Most of the crises happen on a tweet. They could come on an Instagram or a Facebook. How are you able to actually package the response in an authentic manner so that when you respond in a snackable size, it makes sense to people? Brands need to also create a big positive digital safety net as a preparedness for avoiding
That's correct.
crisis.
And just to add there, Mr. Patil, I believe in the coming times, I mean, the role of a communication leader will be highly critical when it comes to the cases like these. And not
Yeah.
just these, you're talking about preparedness. It's not just the case of a case per se, right? It is the preparedness behind that, and the
Absolutely.
total absolute connection with your receivers, your customers, your stakeholders all across.
Absolutely. Preparedness is the main thing. I mean, when I talk about a digital safety net, if you create a positive digital safety net in the social media, which means putting in so much of good, authentic content that when people see eventual one or two rare negatives about your brand, they tend to believe the positives more than the negatives. That's your positive digital safety net. The disposition towards you is already positive. But brands, if there's a vacuum in the media, in the social media space, and something negative comes, it takes precedence. So it's always good to create that positive digital safety net. Be in the social media for good things. Be authentic. Showcase that you are an empathetic brand. Your values are great, and you're doing a service to people. You're conscious. You take up some kind of issues as you own them, support them, and be seen in a great light. And that's when the public, which is your customers or rest of the stakeholders, look at you with respect. And when a small inadvertent or an adverse situation which happens, people then give you the benefit of doubt. And that's the first tenet of crisis management. I mean, you want to have the stakeholders on your side rather than against you. So preparedness is absolutely important. We go one step further in our organization, where for each of the brand we create scenarios. We know what are the potential crises which can happen. And every brand manager, every corporate communications head manager knows what are the potential vulnerabilities of a brand. If you're pre-planned in terms of, if this happens, this should be my response. If this is the scenario, this is the potential crisis, these are the responses. It just helps you in an agile manner to respond quickly, authentically, rather than being flustered and running around when actually something of this nature comes up in the social media. So I think preparedness, the first important rule.
And I think traditionally this is something that hasn't changed. This has been the
This has
fundamental. You
never
talked
changed.
about,
Absolutely.
yeah, you talked about transparency, you talked about faith, you talked about how can you take your customer stakeholders on your side. So the connection, the faith, the relation. So yeah, these are some of the things that traditionally I don't think this hasn't changed. Now, before we uh, come to our end, I really want to talk about your book. It has been an year now that your book, The Pursuit of Reputation, has been out, that you co-authored. Tell us about that and talk about one of your favorite chapters.
Well, all my chapters are favorite for me and Amit, so
Of
we
course, of
can
course.
pinpoint one of them. But about the book, I think this book was a lockdown baby, with a nudge from our late Anant Rangaswamy, who was a veteran communications professional in the industry. He was the one who nudged us during lockdown when we used to have these nightly calls just to be for each other. And he told Amit and I that you should do a book on PR and communications and reputation management. And that was a trigger. And at the initial time of the lockdown, we started writing chapter by chapter. We had to rubbish all of that. Then Anand gave a new framework. Then we again regrouped, came out with a format. We found that there was no book on reputation management in the country, so we said let's call the book Pursuit of Reputation and write in the realms of reputation. And then just evolved. It was a great journey during the lockdown, late night writings, and I think the book is doing really well. I think our publishers Westland did a great justice in terms of promoting it. It's gone for the second round of reprint now. It's got a great support from our colleagues and peers in the industry. And I think the only message that we would like to give is that everyone should write a book at some point of time. It's a long, painstaking process, but it's a very, very gratifying process. I think it helps you give back in terms of whatever you've learned over the period of time in a documented format, which goes off very well amongst the fraternity. I mean, today when we're at airports or we're traveling, if somebody from the community meets us and the topic is about how's the book doing, we've read the book, it's great. Students come back and say, I read this chapter tonight and it was great. It's all over the LinkedIn. It gives you a great feeling, and it puts the pressure on you to keep constantly reinventing yourselves and do more kind of a thing. Coming to your second question, which is your favorite chapter? I think, as I said, all the chapters are very close to our heart, but I think there are two chapters which I personally feel are very important for our community, our profession. One is a chapter on emotions, use of emotions in PR. I think we should do it more often. I think when you use emotions, advertising world has used it so well. Why can't public relations use it? I mean, emotions are something which really connect people to each other, and our whole profession is about connecting our brands and ourselves and our organizations with our stakeholders. So use of emotions, that chapter is amazing. The second chapter, which I love and which I'd written late night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd written it at one go, was creativity in PR, and what different things can be done rather than the traditional way of writing a press release, disseminating and meeting the media and all this. There's much beyond that people can do in the realms of public relations and communication. I think these two chapters stand out. Rest of them are, of course, really in depth, great. There's a chapter on measurement, which I think I would recommend everyone, because there's some there is one, that is one aspect of PR and communications which people still grapple with. I think that's where we've put in our thought in terms of what could be the real way to go forward. I mean, we've coined the term ROO, which is return on objective, which is getting accepted. We've coined the term POMS, paid on earned media strategies. And there's a lot of these things which we are getting a lot of traction. People are talking about it, and I think more and more we talk about these things. It's better for the professions, for the professionals, as well as the profession, and I think for the entire PR community. Well, we are pretty gratified that we wrote the book, and thanks for asking the question. It's
Are we
it's
are
just
we
finished.
expecting are we expecting second one?
I don't know. In the we are lucky or unlucky or whatever you call it. I don't want to be. It was a lockdown period where we had time. There was no travel happening, so we could manage a lot of time and do that. In the current
It seems
scenario, it becomes very difficult to find out focus time because of
that's
job
correct.
pressures.
It
Yeah,
seems it seems we can have a unstoppable or kind of undisrupted conversation altogether on the book only. I mean, I
yeah,
find it very
absolutely.
interesting. Now tell us what's happening at Godrej. Throw some light on what are some of the strategies you're focusing currently. What are your focus areas right now? Tell us some of the strategies you're working on.
So there's a lot of things happening. It's a buzzing hive of activity at Godrej Industries Group. We are a awesome conglomerate with multiple businesses. So there's never a dull period because there's something or other happening in any of the verticals. We are across FMCG, in real estate, in agro, in finance, in chemicals, and you name it, and we are there. Uh, Currently, at a very macro level, I think the focus has been, and this is a realization that dawned on us about 2 years back. Not that we were not doing enough in that realm, but we found that we touch 750 million consumers in our country, and not all of them are sitting in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore and Kolkata. They're sitting in the hinterland, in villages, in regional areas. So there's been a very renewed focus on regional media communications. How do we create content which is more regional, in regional languages, which is not English and then converted to some language, but original regional language first content, be it through videos, be it through posts, be it through press releases, be it through any of the content that we create. So that regional media focus, and I think the results have been really gratifying. So that's one strategy that we're pushing going forward, because we want to be seen across all our 750 million odd consumers in a very uniform manner. That's one aspect that we're working on. We've kind of close to mastering the art of own media properties. So experiential engagement for us is absolutely important. So we have Godrej Lafair, Vicroli, Cucina, various platforms that we've launched, and I think that's another focus, because it leads to a lot of content creation, authenticity being the base. I think creating content using experiential modes where people come and actually see, witness, touch, feel the products, and then write about it makes it a big difference. So recently we concluded the L'Affaire season 6, where we had about 1,500 content creators, each one experiencing the 50 odd brands on ground, and then creating a dhamaka of content. I think that's really strategic, and that's creative use of public relations. That's the second aspect that we're pretty excited about. If you ask me, the third one, we're doing a lot of research driven narratives. I think that's another realm of new way of doing PR. It came out of an insight that the media space is shrinking and journalists and people want to read something which is of human interest, which is research driven, which is data backed, which is insights driven, rather than your product USPs, which everyone knows generally. So how do you actually elevate the whole concept of your communication from being a product USP based communication to a larger cause based and a purpose based thing, which impacts people in different ways? And that can be done through research driven narratives. So we set up a new vertical within the team, which is research driven narratives. For each of the businesses, we create researches based on interaction with a massive sample size, come out with themes, trends, and that really gives a space on the thought leadership realms, as well as content which is much more authentic, which is much more powerful, and we're able to tell the story in a much better way. Case in point is our Godrej Food Trends report with almost 300 chefs and food influencers talking about food and trends of food, which are going to be ruling the roost for the coming year, kind of a thing. So check it out on the sites; you'll find them. I think, and there's a lot of excitement. I mean, I can go on, and I know that I'm conscious that the time is short right now for this interview, but there's tons of things which are happening, which are really, really exciting.
I wish you all the best for this one. Now, for the final question, I mean, if I can push you to give us some of the predictions, sort of predictions, what are some of the trends that you are seeing ahead to stay for long? Make three predictions, let's say 10 years down the line, or let's say 5 years down the line. How are we seeing corporate communications as an industry or as a role that how will it shape up?
I think there's a lot of good change happening in the in the communications industry. I think the number one trend which I see is and which is going to be a most powerful weapon for PR and communications professions is going to be the dependency on data. I think I see a lot of movement and shift towards communications professionals depending on data, insights, analytics, and that is going to raise the bar of communication. That will help communication professionals to actually demonstrate the value of PR and communication in much more significant manner, and that would raise the whole bar of communication. The respect that PR deserves will accrue from here. So I think this is one trend which I'm going to pursue, push, and I'm sure the industry will take notice and will push it to its logical conclusion, because that's when the real the budgets will come in, the kind of talent will flow in, the seriousness of the impact will come in, and we are on the right track today in terms of the overall industry moving in that direction. So that's one trend which is based on data, insights, and measurement, which will rule. The second trend which I see is use of technology. I think more and more conversations. I mean, we've seen when social media started, before that, 3 4 years, people used to talk about social media and how it can impact, and it actually became a reality. I can see the same thing happening in terms of technology. 4 years back, the conversations around technologies were like general coffee table chats, or water cooler chats, and just people visualizing what can happen. It started becoming reality. Today, we are talking much more significantly in terms of applications of AI, applications of technology, how we can actually source technology, use technology, combine data, and draw insights and do stuff which is much more significant. So it's becoming a reality. So the next 4 5 years, I think this will mature, and I would say the big corporate communication functions in the country would be data driven, would be insights driven. They would do only stuff based on real data sourced, maybe on real time, maybe use technology to automate that whole thing, respond faster. So I think that's the second trend, which is use of technology. And the third and the most important thing, and that's a kind of a that's a kind of a situation where you'll have a lot of AI and automation, but I think humanization of your conversations would become much more. They would take center stage in the next 4 to 5 years, because people will get sick of all these automated content, and I think the world will come a full circle saying we need humans to actually do it. I mean, AI can do everything, but can AI actually take a journalist or a stakeholder out for a coffee and pitch a story and get a nice story, co-create a kind of a story? No, and that human angle is what is the base of storytelling for PR professionals. I think that's going to come back big time. and I think I'm bullish on that.
Wonderfully put, Mr. Patil. And I'm sure I mean, you have touched all the right points. And I'm seeing this evolving really fast. And we will have a conversation then, how much of these predictions have been stayed right. And thank you so much for making time for this. This has been a really insightful conversation. Looking forward for more such conversations with you. Thank you so much, Mr. Patil.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.